to our episode of Just Three Workplace Gurus. It's a topic about real world work. I'm Amy,
Hi, Mike.
I'm Vivienne.
and today we're going to talk about productivity. Mike, Vivienne, what does productivity mean to you?
To me, it's all about kind of keeping scheduled. For instance, and I think I said this in the last episode, I know how hard it is for me to be productive at home. And so I have to do very different things at home than I have to do at work.
Like,
Uh, Shut the door so that like
okay.
I can't go out there. Because if I go out there, something's, going to distract me. Um, I think like I often will play music when I'm not on a call just because I think it kind of keeps me going.
Right.
And actually Vivian and I were talking about this last week. I've started a completely different routine where I'm trying to go for a walk every day,
That's amazing.
every morning. And so I'm up pretty early. This morning I was out at 6:30. So my morning routine now, if I can, is that I go for a walk, I come back, I make coffee. Sometimes I sit in the hot tub for 15 minutes. Then I come back in here and I start to work, or some version of that every morning. And I try to do it
Amazing. I like
because
the
if I
hot tub part.
don't, well, yeah, I'm lucky that way. But if I don't do that, I will just start to slip. Like then I'm reading the news, and then I go out and I, empty the dishwasher, like whatever. I don't know what it is, but it has nothing to do with the things I'm supposed to do.
Right.
So I think I have to be, and I've always been this way a little bit anywhere. I'm very much a creature of habit.
Right.
My closet, everything is very organized. Not because I like to be organized, but because I'm distracted and
You need to be organized.
I
Yeah.
need to be organized. Yeah. So I think I am the god of post-it notes. I got a billion of them. They've all got little notes on them of things I need to do that
There
day.
you
I
go.
still do it. Yeah.
Yes.
Still do
I
it.
have a list to the list.
Yeah.
It's
Yes.
ridiculous. And I have an electronic list and I have a notebook and then I have the post-it notes. And but it works.
I get
Exactly.
really excited. So I'm on my third notebook. So I think they last about a year now.
Oh, wow.
So I'm on my
Well,
third notebook since I joined this company.
amazing. And I have to have the right notebook. If it's the wrong notebook, I can't function. And if I'm like really neurotic when it comes
I
to the
agree. And if I
notebooks.
don't carry that notebook everywhere I go, I also don't function. I feel like I can't remember
Yes,
anything if
yes,
I
and
don't
I
have my
need the
notebook.
right pen because the wrong
Yes,
pen also like
Yes.
throws me all
Oh,
totally off my
totally the
game.
right pen. Like that. I
totally.
mean,
Yeah.
okay, we're
Yes,
all a little crazy. Let's yeah.
yes,
But
yes,
all
yes, yes.
those things
Anyway,
matter. I mean, I think they are about being productive. If you don't have to think about the next thing because it's on a piece of paper, but you have the right pen, you have the right book, and the camera's where it's supposed to be, and the monitors, where it's supposed to be, and you have the right keyboard and the right ergonomic mouse,
there you go. Yes.
then it's all better. When you don't have those things, it's like when I travel, it is really hard to sit down at a desk in our office in Austin and just work on my laptop. It just doesn't work. Like it's not what I'm used to. I like my stuff, you
So
know.
what happens to you in the office? So I mean, obviously you can do your routine and your walk and everything at home and then go to the office, but is it all different in the office?
Uh, I think for me, and this is just because of my job, uh, a lot of what I do in the office is about talking to other people. So it's not the same productivity. Like the list of things I have to do today
Right.
have nothing to do with talking to people. Just have PowerPoints I need to figure out and data I need to pull together. There's a lot to do, none of which I would probably get done
In
if
the
I were
office.
in the office. And like the
So
rest of the week is going to be a busy people day thing.
So you touched on something really interesting. Like you it sounds like you have very different work strategies for your which environment you're going to be in.
Yes.
But that's I think something, especially for today's world, like it's really important. So it sounds like for you, home is heads down, work is more interactive with people, and you
Very
have to
much.
sort of plan accordingly.
And I
And I think
think,
it's, I was going to
go
say, I
ahead,
think
Amy.
it's also important to say that there's different levels of productivity through that, right? You can be
Yes,
productive in a heads down focus work like you're doing today. And you can be equally as productive just in a different way by going into the office and connecting with people and
Absolutely.
having those meetings. So it can be monitored in very different ways. And
I think you're right. And then this sort of goes back to like, what is productivity, right? Because this is like I have an obscene amount of thoughts about productivity, because it's such a big, it's part of what we teach at PBE, my company. But it's also something that I have wrestled with, because I'm convinced now I have some kind of ADD something, because I can get, like you, I can get very distracted very easily. And I don't know exactly the nature of your jobs, but I know for me, I do a lot of different things. So different things need different settings and mind frames, et cetera, et cetera. So, but one thing that I realized, I think I went to a workshop on productivity, surprisingly enough. And one of the things that really has stuck with me is there's a big difference between being busy versus productive. So I very much have always been like kind of a slave to that to-do list. I'm also like a pathological optimist. So I think that I can get like 50 million things done in a day, which sets me up for failure, right? So I've gotten a lot more realistic to say, okay, for the week, this is what I'd like to target, and then kind of highlight the essentials. And then I'll break that into the day, and then I'll even break that into the parts of the day. But you know, there's the part of, am I being busy so I think I'm being productive, or am I actually being productive and moving towards goal XYZ? And then there's like the meta productive, like I want to go to Italy, I want to learn French better, and I want like those other things, and I want to finally like write that ergo book. Like, so there's like the sort of every day in front of you productive, there's sort of bigger goal productive, and then there's like the minutia that you have to do to get the things done that cross off your list.
Do you get endorphin rushes when you check things off of that list?
Yes.
I do.
Yeah.
That to me is productivity. Like when
And
I
you want to hear,
complete something.
Totally. And you want to hear something really weird? Do you know where my most productive place to work is? Hands down, no exception, the airplane. I need an airplane. I'm not joking.
Really?
Wow.
I have this fantasy of like flying to Japan so I can do the first draft of my book and come back. And doing it on the
Wow.
I might actually do it. It's where I think the best.
This is an expensive book, you're right.
It's a very expensive book, but you know, it might actually get done. So but that is, I don't know what it is about that environment, but there's something about the ambient noise. Cafes do that to me too, but not quite as good as an airplane. But
you know what's funny about that, Vivienne? I do not work on planes ever.
So funny.
Ever. To me, the fact that I have to fly someplace to work means I'm taking that time. Like I'm watching a movie, I'm reading a book. I don't work.
I gotta rethink
and that's just my policy, because I know I'm going to be working, particularly when you travel. You know, you're working like 24 hours a day. You know.
Yeah.
That's true.
When I go to India, I gave up, and I have finally learned. Like I wake up at 2:00 in the morning, I can't go back to sleep. And my phone is pinging because everybody's working.
Oh, right, because the time difference.
So a lot of times I just get on my laptop, work for 2 hours, and then go back to sleep, and then get up and go to the office. It's just easier. And then when I get up and I head to the office, I know I've dealt with some portion of that. There's another productivity thing. That's how I work internationally, you know.
That's very interesting. But that's cool. I have to rethink that. But I actually do save projects for upcoming travel.
No, I think that's great.
And then if there's no Wi-Fi, I panic, and I'm like,
I was gonna
what do you mean there's no Wi-Fi? Right. So yeah.
Do you know? But you know what that is to me? That is you recognizing what works for you and making that happen. And I think that's the biggest thing we are in the process of learning, or helping our employees learn, is what works best for you. How do we help you be productive? Whatever that is. It doesn't matter. There are people who are more productive because they go to the office.
Absolutely.
You know, in terms of the tasks that they have to do. I don't happen to be one of them, but you know,
so
kind
Mike,
of recognizing
you bring up a good question though. Like, what do leaders, like, how are they managing productivity? Are they looking at the individuals and what comes out of that, or are they kind of, you know, looking at companies now and saying this is the way we're going to be doing business? How do you manage productivity in that kind of environment where it's very individualized?
Can I be blunt?
Be blunt.
I don't think we are.
Go. You don't think you
I mean, I think it was very easy when everybody sat near you and you could see what they were doing, and those days are over. And so,
but was that busy work or was that productive?
Totally agree with you. That's the whole point, really.
Yeah.
I've managed remote. I said this in the last podcast. I've managed remote employees for a long time, 20 years. As long as they're getting their work done and I get what I need,
Yes.
and the employees in that particular location are happy,
yes,
I'm happy. It's fine. How they choose to use their time, I don't. Half of the time, I wake up in the morning and they're already done with their day. So,
there you go. They're distributed.
Well, and we're talking to like my India team. We're talking to each other when it's their night or my morning or their morning and my night. I mean, that's just
Right.
kind of the world that we live in now. It's very international.
Yeah.
So I feel like I'm pretty good at recognizing what helps them be productive, but I don't think we are teaching people how to do that.
Well, it's interesting. So if I can sort of veer off in a slightly different direction, because for me, agree or don't agree, like to me, the top of the productivity food chain is sleep. What?
Okay.
I fully agree with that.
When I am tired, I'm useless. Useless. Airplane, office, home, it doesn't matter where I am. I'm just like an idiot and I can't get anything done. Or I'm like just slow at everything and I'm dragging and I'm just mushy brained and whatever. When I'm rested, it's like I can do the work of 15 people in a day. And it's like shocking what it can get done. So I really feel like that sort of self-care piece is an overlooked piece in the productivity. And I really like feel this like just from personal experience and just working with so many people, that when there's enough sleep, like Mike, your walks in the morning are gold, clears your head, you get the exercise in, and then you're like, okay, I'm ready to do this. So I feel like the exercise piece and then the food piece. So I've had days where I'm like clean eating, I'm doing everything right, and then I succumb to the candy bar or that extra cup of coffee, and I'm great for a minute, and then I'm like, I'm gonna die.
Where are the vegan candy bars? I got to learn about those.
There are some, but anyway,
Do they taste good?
They do taste good. Anyway, but that to me, like if that's going well, I feel like that sets the stage for everything else going well.
Yeah.
So at least that's for
Yeah.
me. So I don't know what it is for you guys, but like,
I'll tell you, I read this article years and years ago. I should go find it because it was kind of interesting, and it addressed sort of the work ethic of Americans and the concept that we, for some reason, in terms of work, we have adopted the Puritan work ethic.
yes.
You must always be busy. You must always be working. All of your values are built into that.
Yes. Your
And
self-worth, everything.
yeah, and you said something about busy earlier. To me, the worst answer to a question, "How are you?" is "I'm
I'm
busy."
so busy.
And I'm trying, and I think I've said this to you guys before outside of the podcast, but you hear that from people, and then they tell you about whatever show they've been binge watching for the last 3 weeks, and apparently you're not that busy.
Hey, that's busy. I'm busy watching. Great.
Have
Well,
you
fair,
heard about
fair.
the newest phenomenon? So we had the silent resignation, a year ago. The newest one, get on your TikTok, is the lazy girl worker.
What is
It was
that?
I think it was just in
I need to
the
learn how to
New
do
York
that.
Times article. And it's basically you're applying for jobs that are fully remote, have a 4-day work week, but they're 8-hour days, not 10-hour days. I mean,
Oh,
there's
Lord.
just all these different like things. And most of them, hopefully I'm not offending, but they're usually like analytic jobs that you could basically do at any time of the day. And typically you'll act like it takes a lot of time to do the analytics, but you could do an algorithm really quick, in an hour or so. But that's the
Interesting.
new thing, the lazy girl.
Lazy girl.
Put your
See,
work
I
in,
wish I
and
could be the lazy girl.
it's also, but
I missed
the
that
flip
memo.
side of it is it also gives them work-life balance, right? They're able to get their workouts in, they're getting their sleep, they're getting like their mental wellness and things like that.
Well, you bring up a good point. So if I'm working 40, 50, 60-hour weeks, but I'm basically heading straight to burnout and I'm not really productive, like, is it the amount of hours or at the end of the day, like you said, Mike, like I need this done by then, get it done. I don't care if it's 2 a.m, 8 a.m, like it doesn't matter. And our company works like that. We're fully remote and we're more project deadline driven. There's certain things that are customer facing that you have to give a response that day kind of thing. But But it's interesting. So is it really
Yeah.
the amount, like the hours you're clocking in, or what you're able to do?
Well, that's the argument, right? It's the
and I
argument.
was going to say the same thing, right?
Right.
What are we paying people for? Is it there? For instance, I've been doing this for 26 years. I'm good at what I do. According to some people, I'm an expert. Does that mean I still have to work 50 or 60 hours a week? Or can I do my work in 40 or sometimes 35 because I have it
And is that
down.
a bad thing? Isn't
I
that
don't
like
know.
what the normal hours should be? Like,
I don't
look
know.
at Europeans, right? So I have French family, and they think
Yes.
we're insane. And
Well,
they're
we
like,
are.
why do you work the month of August? Like, they say that very seriously.
Right.
Like, what do you mean you can't come hang out with us in the can? I'm like, I have to work. Like, what? But they live longer. They really
Yes,
do.
they
Have
do.
like less heart disease, and the health French paradox, and I'm using that as an example. They eat the red meat and they drink the wine and they smoke and they do everything we're not supposed to do. And they're slim and they're active and they literally live longer. And I just wonder if stress, like that sort of Puritan work ethic, like where that came from, and is that good or bad?
I do think you're right. It's bad, but it's what we do.
And we
I
don't take
think
our
we would,
vacations either.
right.
That's
I
the
think
other
we
piece
would
of
rather
yeah.
die successful
I
than
would.
live longer, less success. I think
Well, but
that's
that could go so deep. Like, what is successful? Because you could go a whole nother path down that. It doesn't mean, on your tombstone, they're going to say, thank God Mike worked 80 hours a week.
Yeah.
He was really successful. No,
they're
like,
not.
no, they're
Yeah,
not
they're
going to say
not.
that.
Right.
It
not.
really is that balance that you can do. And I also think it's a little bit of like generational. So back to this lazy girl, this is supposed to be that the paradigm to what a hustler, right? Which is, I think, what some of us are doing these days, where we're working too many hours. We say we're busy every time somebody asks us a question. And
we're not
are
happy.
we really putting our efforts in the right place? And are we taking
Yeah.
care of ourselves for what we're doing?
So going back to the morning routine. So I'm kind of like a routine person myself. So when I'm not on the airplane, I have a different routine for that. But I'm an early morning person, but that's if I got to sleep on time, right? So I have to think backwards. But so my husband and I are completely different schedules. He's the night owl. I'm an early bird. And I finally realized his nighttime, like my morning when the world is quiet, that's when I actually do my best work. But I've learned to say that's when I do my best creative work. So anything that involves writing, scripting, video makeup, anything that's just more like I have headspace. And I'm also, I travel a lot, but my company is based in California. I live in New York. So I have the luxury of an open morning. And then it's like popcorn, 10:30, the first emails come, and then 11, and then it's over. So I use that time to like get up and do a chunk of work early, kind of like your India thing, right? I don't go back to bed, but then I'll actually do my exercise. And then I also play piano. So that's where I practice like my hour a day. And then if I get more in later, great. If not, at least I got that done. And then I actually sort of go to work. So that's interesting. And the days that I wake up late and I just feel off and like I can't, I sort of lose that rhythm. I feel it throughout the day.
Yeah. I think that's true.
So,
I think it's great that you're able to do that and, for instance, spend the time at the piano, because to me, that probably motivates you for the rest of the day.
It does.
Like you've got the
My brain
creative
gets set
juices.
differently.
Yeah. So then you're kind of at it after that, which I think is really cool.
And the other thing I've learned to do, and I've advised others to do it, and some say this absolutely doesn't work for me, and others are like, oh God, just changed my whole life. But I'll also, there's two parts and they go together. I'll chunk my work. So I have to take courses and read books to like learn how to do this, which seems so obvious. But the distraction of the bings on the phone and that little like email thing that tells you somebody just called and you get a text message, it was like squirrel. I would like go chase that thing. And I was like, okay. And then the interruptions would come. So number one, I had to learn to like not check email every 5 seconds. Like that could be done. Do whatever project I'm going to do, work on that for an hour, maybe 90 minutes, and do that deep dive. But the key to that is turning off the distractions. And then I know this sounds weird, but I have a sit-stand desk. So some things I do better standing and some things I do better sitting. So I've been playing with that. But chunking the work really helps. And being like, now I'm going to work on this thing, period, end of sentence. And some call it the Pomodoro Technique. So it's like you work for 25 minutes, take a 5-minute break, another 25 minutes, another 5-minute break. If you need a third segment, you do another 25-minute, and then you take a long break. And the breaks are counterintuitive, but we actually learned this from studying musicians. So musicians go into that practice room and they like work their guts out and they're memorizing, they're learning, and then they go hang out in the lounge for an hour. And then they go back in and they do it again. So like, anyway, that's a technique that has been very helpful. So
that's really cool. I haven't really thought about it that way. That's a great
Early
way of
in my
thinking about
career, we did Franklin time management trainings.
oh,
it.
And
Yes.
I mean,
So did
I
I.
feel like that gave me the basis. It seems like we've all have some portion of that in our lives between the three of us. I mean,
I've
first of all, we're
forgotten
all morning
everything I
people.
learned in that class.
Because I don't think you did actually, Mike, because I think you're doing it right.
interesting.
It's all about how you set your day. And I think for me in the evening, I think about what do I have the next day? I'm a
Yes.
total morning
Yes.
person as well. So a day of success starts off with some form of a workout in that early morning time, right?
Are you
And
still
then
doing your 4:30 a.m.?
no, I don't do that any that ended with COVID, thank God, because actually that wasn't healthy for me. It was great that I had that done,
Yeah.
but I went to bed at 8 p.m. the night before and I was really cranky and tired all day long.
Yeah.
So that didn't work well.
That didn't work. Okay.
6 a.m. is much more realistic. That hour and a half makes a huge difference. But setting that up, right? So getting that done, and again, I'm all about the endorphin rushes. That to me is very invigorating. So getting that done, having that quiet time before everybody is up and moving around is really enjoyable. I get a lot of my focus work done at that time, right? And then like setting up, what does my day look like? And how am I going to accomplish the things? And you have like your must get dones. They could get done or they can move on to another day. And then your big goals, right? Your trip to Italy or something like that. And what are the little tasks that I can do to get me to that trip to Italy? So I think it's all about like really planning that out in advance. And to me, then seeing the progress of getting there, right? Here, I've accomplished steps A, B, and C. That to me is like how I can be productive.
That brings up a good point. There's a course I took, I forgot the name of it, but Marie Forleo, she's a kind of an online business productivity guru. She's fantastic. And there was a course I took that was basically about productivity. And that was one of her key things, which is at the end of your day, set yourself up for what is needed the next day. And then also plan for interruptions because they happen, right? So then what do you do? And that's sort of just kind of like, and not only like through a list set up the next day, but your physical space, like clean it up, put away the things from that day, and you're sort of setting the stage for a fresh start. And it sounds like such a tiny little thing, but it's just like, I can do it.
Well, and especially now where you could, like, Mike, to your point, you could stay home all day and get your real focus stuff done, or you could, and especially now, like a lot of my day is in transit, right? I might be home right now in the morning, but soon after this, I'm going to be getting in a car. I've got to go somewhere. I've got to do this. How do I plan that day out? And one of the challenges that I feel I'm faced with right now is if somebody sees that little window of time where it looks like I'm not booked, they will book something, but it's actually, that's my transit time. And I can't be in front of a computer or something like that. So that's really important to planning your day in advance so that you can say, hey, just so you know, I'm going to be on the car, or if this is something I need to see, we're going to need to reschedule, things like that just tend to pop up.
And I do think it's okay to do some of those things. Like I do take calls in the car, as long as I don't have to look at anything. I can do a one-on-one with somebody on my team, or have a conversation with some, the general contractor on a project or whatever. If I don't have to look at my screen, that's actually not a horrible way to use the time, because I'm commuting an hour each way. So that, nothing like driving Highway 17 and all of that.
I mean, you're going to get me wanting to talk a lot more if I'm in the car then.
Yes. Yeah. I agree. The other thing that I think is a challenge, I suspect it's a challenge for all of us, is sort of the guilt around work.
Guilt?
If I get up after we finish the podcast and I go make myself a sandwich and then I, go out in the backyard and kind of like, I take a break, I feel more guilt ridden about that than if I go down the hall to the break room and end up having a ridiculous conversation with 2 or 3 coworkers. It's the same thing, but I feel better about it because I'm in the office
Interesting.
than if I'm away from my desk. Like if I don't take my phone with me at home, I feel like I'm not working. Like this is not okay. You know?
Well, the reason I said what, I would get over that one quickly. So I made peace with my breaks, and I need my breaks. Like that's the other
Yeah,
thing.
you're right. You're right.
Because I'm like, I'll go sometimes play the piano, or I'll go literally outside. I live across the street from a beautiful park, and sometimes I'll literally just go out there, and that's like, I'll give myself 15 minutes. I'll sometimes give myself a half hour, because when I come back, I've got that headspace again to plow through the next chunk, right? So, and I used to feel guilty, by the way. So, but I finally was like, no, this is actually, it's counterintuitive, but I believe that's actually one of the fundamental ways to be productive, is to take those breaks. And if we go on a bigger scale, take that vacation and stop giving up your hours, you know, and which is like a weird syndrome that, especially in the US, we have. And I feel like other countries around the world are like, no, this is how you do it, right?
Yeah, we're crazy. No question.
Do you think it's a generational thing, or do you think?
Oh yeah, yeah.
I even. What was the question? What did you say?
If it's generational.
I think it might be. But I don't know. I mean, my daughter, who's, I guess, falls in the millennial category, she is like, she literally said, "Oh, well, if I lose an hour at this time, I've got to make up for it at that time." And I'm so impressed by her work ethic. I'm like, what? You know? And I finally got comfortable. Like the other day, I woke up and I was like, it's just not going to happen today. Like I was so productive the other 4 days of the week, no joke. And I got like way more. I was like ahead of schedule. And then in the afternoon, I was like, I think I'm just going to go do something I never do. I'm going to go shopping. I was like, and I was guilt free. You know what I mean? And because I also like worked a little bit after, like I just redistributed that work day. But I thought, why should I sit here and force something to happen that's simply not going to happen? My brain is like, I don't know where it is.
That's so funny. I think I'm fine with going to a doctor's appointment in the middle of the day.
No,
I could not. Yeah, but I could not go shopping. No. I couldn't do that.
Interesting. Well,
I admit there's probably a little bit of Catholic guilt in there. So
that's very interesting, because one of my favorite things that I've ever discovered was going to in other time zones. So I was in Europe at one point, and I was like, this is amazing. I'm at the museum. I'm at the Louvre, and everybody's sleeping. Yeah. This is guilt free. And then but I was willing to work in the evening. Right. And I thought, well, I'm just going to work then and then wake up in the morning and answer the emails. And I thought, I need to move to Paris. Because I'm like, I could sit in the cafe guilt free and do whatever and then work later. And so people are doing that.
But Vivienne, what was your number one criteria for productivity? Sleep. You do it that way, you're not going to get your sleep.
No, I was up till 1, but I slept till 9. So I just had to like shift things around. But I was like, hey, I could do this. So people are like, that's one of the big things. I want to work fully remotely, and I want to adopt a different lifestyle. So we're definitely seeing that happen out there. And I'm going to go work in Mexico for 3 months, and then I'll work from Hawaii, and then I mean, not me, that would be nice, but people are doing this, and they're being successful.
They are. Mm-hmm.
So I think we just aren't ready to recognize that we can do it. I was reading really early this morning a quick article about the fact that TikTok in New York is requiring their employees to come back.
Zoom is requiring their employees to come back. The irony.
Well, and they're tracking. I know, and they're tracking it on a badge reader thing, and apparently there are going to be consequences if you don't come in. I don't know. Anyway, it was really interesting. I probably go down a rabbit hole with this too often, where then I go down and I want to see what the comments are. What do people think about this?
And what are they?
And I was surprised there are still some people who are, and I say this all the time as a caveat to our situation. You people who can work from anywhere. The rest of us have to go someplace. I mean, there's still a fair amount of anger out there, I think, for the bulk of the population, which we know is, 70, 80%, something like that, of people who have to go to a place.
Yeah.
I get it. I agree. This just happens to be the world that we're in, and we can work from anywhere. We're very fortunate.
We're very
But
But
fortunate.
how do you create a culture in your company where you maybe have people who have to be in every day, and then you have the people who don't come in every day,
It's a problem.
right? Like you have people in the lab who just have to be there. I mean, that's where I
yes,
think that's the big concern
Yeah.
within companies is that,
And
and it isn't going to be equitable. It just isn't.
no,
That's
and we
just a
talked
fact.
about it last time, which is that in our first podcast, which was there's pros and cons to each, right? Fully
Yep.
remote, you're not visible, or you're gonna you might be lonely, you're not part of the team in the sort of traditional sense. But I think that this is an opportunity to really rethink things. And I feel like the companies that are demanding, you have to go back to the old way, and this is the way, and that's fine if that's what the sort of culture is. But I feel like it not maybe not so going to be so successful, because I think too many employees are like, hold on a minute, I actually have found, I don't want to go back to that grind. I want to do this differently. And so
I'm
it'll
a
be
firm
interesting.
believer that we've got to, how do I put this? I don't want to make people come back. I don't want to entice them to come back, but I don't think we ever want to dissuade them from coming to the office. You know, every time something comes back in my world where we have to, sorry, I lost my train of thought, where we have to make some change in the office, or we're doing some construction project or something, I try very hard not to create those environments, because that's just one opportunity to say you don't have to come in that day, which I don't think is the right solution.
Right.
So how do we do that? We've just got to make it, I think there's a whole FOMO thing that we really just have to keep pushing on. Like, it's really cool to be in the office. Come on
Don't
down.
miss out.
you have to make them want. It has to be their decision, and
Yes,
that they want to, right?
yes,
So
yes.
whether there's tools in the office that they're going to need, or the comfort, or there's people in the office, you want to make it a real destination for them to want to come in.
Agreed. Totally agree.
No, I agree. And you mentioned something with the tools. There are some companies who are saying, hey, so of course I'm the ergonomics geek of the crowd, but that's a big part of productivity too. If you're not comfortable, literally, I mean, you're just not going to be productive. And so I was recently up in Massachusetts, the most unergonomic work environment you could possibly imagine. So I'm working on my brother-in-law's kitchen table on my laptop, sort of too high, hunched over, and like the headache started immediately, and I couldn't really function because of that. And I was like, oh, right, ergo is important. But anyway, but that's a big piece of it. So some companies are and I don't know that I disagree with this, where they're everybody's wrestling what needs to be provided for remote workers versus the office. What am I responsible for? What are the regulations? And it's different in different parts of the world. But the idea of if you live nearby an office and your home is not environment is not conducive to feeling good and it's not comfortable, come to the office. And I don't know that that's unreasonable. Like, we have desks and we have chairs and everything's adjustable, and we're providing it for you, and you are within the radius, so why not come in?
Yeah.
And so, there's a big question mark all over this versus, hey, if you're working from home and we're offering that and it's an extension of the workplace, what do we need to give you? So that's like a whole topic unto itself. But
we talked about this earlier, but I think that conversation between a people manager and the employee about what's most productive for them is the most important thing you can do. And I think it's perfectly fine to say, maybe it would be helpful if you came in a couple times a week. You don't have to, but here are the reasons why this would be helpful. I'm not in that position because my team manage office space, so they're in office. Right. But I think that there's a lot to be said for that. And those are conversations we should be having with managers to have with their employees. What's going to work for you? What's going to get right? What's going to give you the right work-life balance? What's going to give you the right health and wellness? What's going to keep you productive? What's going to help you meet the goals that we have, whatever they are? And I think those are really, really strong conversations that we need to encourage more.
I think that's true. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was just going to say mentorship is another thing that can be really missed. So when you have people who want to move up in their careers, or who want to learn a new skill, it's very challenging to do that naturally over a virtual experience, right? And that's where those types of interactions within the office can really occur. Just overhearing a conversation. You don't even have to talk to that person.
That's
Right.
true. That's very true. Yeah. I was going to say something too. I forgot.
I'm sorry.
Oh, well.
I'm so sorry.
No, that's okay. It'll come back. It'll come back. But yeah, no, there's so many prongs to this. Oh, I know what I was going to say. I was going to say that it's also your personality type. So if you're like me, who's like ridiculously, obnoxiously social, working, but I also need time to myself, right? So there's that balance of, there are times that I'm in the apartment and I start to go stir crazy, and we're a fully remote company at PBE. So I go literally, and I may have said this before, but I go to the cafe just to be around humans, right? And break it up too. So like, I'll go down there and work on this for 2 hours and I'll come back and do whatever. So, if you're that introvert, going to the office can be really difficult. If you're that extrovert, working remotely can drive you up a wall. So there's that to consider too, right? And then what are your family needs, and do you have kids, and what else are we balancing? So
yeah, we should spend a whole episode on the family thing, because I think that's also really, really important. Those issues have changed. Now, none of us have kids at home anymore, but we certainly know what that's like. God, I can remember having to come home and get some project done when the kids were little and thinking, this is just a nightmare. This is not going to work. They're running in and out of the house and their friends, and it's just too chaotic. And I didn't do it very often, obviously, but and I love my kids, but you're either a parent to a 5-year-old or you're working, but there doesn't seem to be both
at the same time does not work.
Be realistic about what your goals are. Mike, you said something that's been really just sitting in my head resonating. And I think that the management side, the people management side, is ever more necessary right now. Really helping those people, guide them into what is success, what is productivity, how are we going to monitor, and how are we going to help you achieve your goals. I think that's going to be really important right now. And I do feel like in many cases that might have been lost over the last few years, because we're kind of pulling back and saying, you do you, whatever that might look like for you. But really, we should be helping guide them as managers to what that might be looking like. We all need some kind of a roadmap and to talk it through.
Yeah, so I agree. And I'll say one more thing, and I know we're coming on time here, but I have to put it out there because it's something that I wrestle with, and I hear this almost every single day. What is your take, and are you as plagued as I am with back-to-back meetings? Because they're horrible. I hate them. And I feel like they're the most unproductive thing in the world. And fighting hard, and I'm one of the worst offenders, by the way, right? I teach people, hey, put that 15-minute buffer. Hey, let it be a 25-minute meeting, like have your agenda ahead of time. Yet there's also a need to connect, right? So just curious your take on it, because it's my nemesis.
I would love to see all meetings be 45 minutes or 20 minutes.
Thank you.
For that reason.
Agreed.
Last Wednesday, I did work from home, and I had 5.5 hours of back-to-back meetings.
It's exhausting.
So there is a moment where, pardon me for being blunt, you need a freaking bio break. How are you going to get it? So I literally said to one person, I need to end 5 minutes early because I got to go to the bathroom. So I got to go. And logged off like I did. Like, what do you know?
I love it.
One of the things I feel is a big gift is when somebody ends the meeting early. Like all of a sudden it's like, yes. So I've actually been trying to do that a little bit more, like be really prepared for the call and then just be able to just say, okay, we've hit all of our goals. We can now end this and you have 20 minutes back in your schedule. I mean, that is
it's a gift.
No, I think that this is a really good conversation for us to continue to discuss. I think given the amount of time that we're investing and into, I don't even know what I'm saying. Okay.
Because our brains have just hit
I'm going to be
unproductive now.
I became unproductive. I need a bio break. I need a bio.
I do too.
That's
so on
our-
that note,
That's our partying
that
break.
wraps things up for today.
Mic
And
drop.
we'll see you the next time. I love it.